Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me start by saying out loudly that I'm promising to you that I will speak about the Pacific Alliance, so I will avoid to be reminded of not having touched on the topic at the end of my presentation. So, picking on your first question of the three that you presented to us, let me talk about the first one, about the forecast of which part of the regions are probably going to do better than the others in the years ahead. And I'll do that by underlining three factors that I consider to be critical to do that kind of an assessment. And the three of them are connected with three geographical reference points in the world, if I may. The first one is China. And it has to do with the engagement of some of Latin American countries in feeding the 800-pound commodity gorilla. So I should say that obviously the less dependent a Latin American country is on the commodity producing output for China as a market, obviously will be much better off in the future. But I would like also to consider China, and this is a subject that I would like to bring to the table to the conversation in this conference, because China is not just about a market for commodities, you know. China seems to be in the middle of economic transformation to an economy with a greater focus on domestic consumption and manufacturing of products with higher value, and with an interest on developing the service industry as well. So, perhaps there are opportunities for Latin American jurisdictions there as well, because we've seen lately that the interest of China for Latin America will not disappear because of the dramatic drop on the prices of commodities in the market, and China is investing in Latin America in certain industries, energy, aviation, infrastructures. Chinese companies are buying stakes in large holdings in Latin America. So I don't think China is tiptoeing through Latin America for short-term opportunistic reasons, and the Chinese interest in Latin America will continue for the future. So that would be factor number one, in my humble opinion. The second factor would be Brazil. The sheer size of Brazil's economy is so relevant for the evolution of Latin American economy that the more trade-dependent a Latin American country is of its relation with Brazil, obviously is going to suffer the most during the next 1-2 years until we see the light at the end of the tunnel for Brazil. And this basically take us down to the south of South America or Latin America than the rest of the continent, because as you know well, you know, from Panama and onwards, you know, Mexico and the rest of the countries there are basically fully integrated in the US value chain, and the effect for them of the situation in Brazil is not so relevant. And I will conclude on the second factor by saying that I fear we're just the beginning rather than at the end of the situation in Brazil. Just a little anecdote. I was listening to the chief economist of the largest financial institution at the beginning of 2015 talking about the economy in Brazil this year, and this person told us that, you know, Brazil was going to face 1, perhaps 2 quarters of, you know, the glitch in its economy, and it will come back, bouncing back immediately after that. I listened to the same person before summer talking about the Brazilian economy, and he was talking about recession coming into Brazil for the rest of 2015 and most part of 2016. And the latest time, I'm not stalking him, I'm just following because I want to see the consistency of economists' predictions. I'm fascinated by the economists being marvelous predictors of the future. So the third time that I listened to that person, whose name we should remain private to you for obvious reasons, because it's my bank of choice, amongst many other things that he is working for at the moment. So the third time that I heard him, right after summer, he said in public that he sees that the recession in Brazil will probably last into 2017. So that's my second factor to consider, China and Brazil. And the third factor to consider, how well, or rather less well, Latin American countries are going to do in the future, has to do with another geographical point, which is the Pacific Basin. And here I'm going to talk about your favorite subject, Mr. Chairman. My point being that the more leaning a Latin American economy is towards the Pacific Ocean, whether through the Pacific Alliance or the TPP, I think it would be much better off in the future. As for the other two questions you asked, Mr. Chairman, would you please excuse me for not addressing none of them, particularly the one on corruption, because coming from the jurisdiction that I come from, I feel it's a bit arrogant that I lectured you on corruption in Latin America over my shoulder, because we still have lots of homework to do back at Spain in that regard. So I'd rather, run away from that conversation as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lucinda Elliott, Financial Times. I wanted to pick up on what Jorge Cachinero mentioned about relationships with China. And I wondered, is this trade dependence actually a threat to the region? And is it actually largely because the West has lost interest in investment in Latin America, given the pessimism and obviously the problems with corruption?
Well, I have to confess to you that at this point of the debate, my main goal is to walk down from the stage sounding one piece. So I will be brief and politically correct as much as I can. But what I meant in my presentation is that, yes, China is going to be part of the future economic development of Latin America. And the current situation of commodity prices, I see not only as a threat, but as an opportunity for Latin American economies to start thinking about transforming the productive matrices in a way that can engage with China at a different level, with higher value goods and services that will bring more prosperity for Latin America, rather than just, as I said at the beginning of my presentation, being the feeder of the 800-pound commodity gorilla that is China at the moment for Latin America.
Good.
Thank you.
Yes.